I imagine that people in the ancient past, or not even ancient past, but hundreds of years, a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago, 500, 600 years ago, in this place, people indigenous to this place, if they live near the water, they would understand, you know, where that water level is at all times in order to survive, like barnacles, you know? And if we can be aware of the water level at all times, then we can prepare ourselves better for when all the water rises and when sea level rise happens.
I thought I saw you late last night in Brooklyn, Brooklyn Island.
Like one of the things that we talked a lot about was the liveness, and like the live stream thing. Do you feel like that's still, like from your perspective, like scholarly perspective, is that still like interesting to you, or like what do you think? What's like the interesting thing to point out?
Yeah. You know, COVID changed many things.
Yeah.
Like we were so used to this idea of having to be in physical presence.
Yeah.
And then COVID made us stay in the house. Everyone had to use a phone. Like you almost remembered all your friends on Facebook and send them text messages because you're not going anywhere. And I think constantly now people are going to be doing both. You had already started by insisting.
I feel like I started that trend.
By insisting on the two. So people are able to watch you within a physical space. They call spatial co-presence. Then also watch you on virtual co-presence.
Yeah. I know, it's funny because now everyone does live stream everything. Whereas like when I was doing it before COVID, it wasn't that common. Yeah. But it felt important because of the international nature of things. I was also just remembering when you were talking about that, how like early on in COVID, I remember it must have been April in 2020. I like showed up to a friend's birthday party on Zoom, and it was like so awkward because everybody. It's so weird. Like you can't have a party on Zoom. I realized, and it's. I mean, of course you can't, but like it made me think a lot about performance actually, and how like there's going to be some performance studies person who writes a dissertation about how COVID or how Zoom, just like the performative nature of Zoom. Because I feel like I remember I came late and then I felt like all of a sudden all eyes were on me and I had to perform to say hello. And that's just like, that never happens when you're in a real room at a party. People don't all go and like look at the door and be like, make an entrance, you know? Is it still raining outside? I think it is.
Wow. So this is how Nairobi is normally is in July. You have rain that doesn't, it's not heavy, but it's continuous almost.
It's so weird though. New York is very, well, maybe the climate is changing. This is actually, I think this is remnants of Hurricane Ian, the hurricane that came through Florida. Because
As if it was waiting to punish
we don't
me.
usually have so much gray.
Rain.
You're getting a bad experience of New York. New York is overwhelming when you come here for the first time. I came here on my spring break of my freshman year of college, and I was with two friends, and we were just like running around, and I literally, the thing that I remember the most is that I thought we went to a club called the Limelight, which is now like a shopping mall on 21st and 6th Avenue. But that was like, we took a taxi to get there, and it was like, it was a whole thing, and they took my Swiss Army knife at the door. We waited a long time to get in. But then the other thing that I think is so funny is that we went to Washington Square Park, which is right by NYU where we were the other night. But I thought we were in Central Park.
Okay.
I got so confused. I just thought this is of course before iPhones. This was 1996?
Okay.
No. Yeah, 1996. Spring of 1996.
Which
like March.
In which college?
I was at UCLA.
This the year I graduated.
That's the year you graduated?
Undergraduate.
From University of Nairobi? Okay.
Undergraduate. Something like that.
Yep, see? We're in the same generation. But that was something, in some ways it's like so wild, like I don't even know, I still think it's so weird that I just like knew, I grew up in California, right? And I like had it in my head that I would move to New York. And so I lived in England for a little while after I graduated because I had gone to England for my junior year, and then I landed in New York. And I don't even remember making that decision. It just was, it was like what was supposed to happen. And, but it does really, now also.
But you grew up in California.
I did, yeah.
Why did you leave a warm state?
I think I got it in my head that like New York was where you go to be an artist.
Okay.
And then that was like the place I just had to be there. And so I did that.
And you think it was the right decision?
Oh yeah. It's funny, I sometimes talk about how like I'm really bad at the small decisions, like what I'm gonna order for dinner if I'm at a restaurant is a very challenging decision for me. But the big things like moving to New York is just like, I somehow just know, or there's moments that are like very clear, like, okay, that's what we're doing next. I'm not gonna like sit and twiddle my thumbs about it.
But actually,
And I think there are people who like, some people are really good at small decisions, and some people are really good at, and bad at big decisions, and some people are good at big decisions and bad at small decisions. And you can tell from like the way, how long it takes me to like get out of the house. I'm bad at small decisions. I'm good at big decisions. If you ever need a big decision, what were you gonna say?
I will ask for advice.
You come to me.
Big decision maker.
Yeah.
Daring.
I should put that on my resume.
And
Really bad.
You do advise. Anyone who wants to make a big decision, come to me.
Yeah.
The way I see Americans like advertising everything. Wow. That music.
The harmonica. I know, I'm actually, now that I'm sitting here, I'm like, what do I want to drink next? I don't know. There's beer. Hi.
You sell wine in a glass, like, or a whole bottle?
We can also do crafts.
Okay.
We probably want something different.
What are you thinking?
Is there any that is sweet?
Oh yeah, they're all gonna be dry. So we're thinking red, white, orange, rosé.
He likes something, he's from Kenya,
Okay.
And he wants actually like something sort of sweet. That's a wine. Do you have anything sort of sweet?
Sweet to me? Oh, let me see.
Okay, tomorrow we'll connect with Yuna.
Try this guy.
Okay.
This is a Spanish red. It's Stila Mancha.
Okay. Has a nice aroma.
Can I smell?
I think I like it.
No. I want it white.
I'll go with that.
Yep.
And this is a good dry, right?
Yeah.
Wait, what is it?
So this is a Vernacha.
Okay.
So it's a northern Spanish grape.
Do you guys, but are you guys doing any other like performance art, or is the performance really theater based, all theater based there, would you say?
Is it what?
Well, I'm just wondering, like, is it, because you know how like my background was in the theater, but
Yeah.
then now I'm like looking at performance from this really different perspective. You have this like oral history background and
Yeah.
you look at performance. How do you feel like, what is, I'm just kind of curious, like, what is performance beyond, like, how do you keep them pushing boundaries? How do you keep the students pushing boundaries? And, or is it very like sort of traditional theatrical, like Moliere in the performance department, or Dante's Inferno? Or like, what is like the most interesting thing?
Okay, my original, like I had this theater group that I started way after school.
Yeah.
We used to call it People's Popular Theater, PPT. And ours was that you use the oral traditions, African oral traditions to deal with issues. So we specifically used to pick oral narratives that deal with certain issues and then focus on it, convert it, even when we're dealing with the constitutional issues, like explaining what a constitution is to people. We will pick a narrative that has that idea and explain from that perspective.
Yeah.
So it's a blend of many things. Like the one, I'll record some of them and send it to you so that you see.
Okay.
Some of them could be just a song.
Yeah.
They sing a song and use that as something that provokes discussion about
like, I'm just
sexuality.
I'm like thinking there must be so many rich traditions of performance. Like the people we met in Bodo, like there's performance happening with that all the time. And so I don't know, I'm just curious, like, does it?
When we were doing civic education, for example, there's a famous story by Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe wasn't the original narrator of it, but he picked from the oral tradition.
Okay.
Maybe you've heard of it, about bats going to heaven.
Okay.
So when these bats are going to heaven for a negotiation, they think they need a spokesperson, and they pick on the tortoise.
Okay.
So the tortoise says, I don't know how to fly. So each of the bats contribute feathers, and then they fly with the tortoise to heaven, and the tortoise is going to be the spokesperson. When they get to heaven, as they were going actually, the tortoise says, by the way, in heaven, people normally need like new names to be addressed when you are there. So you have to pick a name that will be addressed.
Okay.
So he says, for me, mine is going to be all of you.
All of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then this one say, I'll stick to my name and all that. So when they get there, they bring food, and the tortoise says, okay, whose food is it? Then the host says, it's for all of you. And say, oh, this is a tradition in heaven. They feed the spokesperson first, then you eat later. So he eats everything. They bring anything, he says, all of you. So the bats get annoyed, and then they say, we're taking our feathers. and we are leaving you here. So they pick the feathers and start flying back. But this bird comes back and says, okay, what do you want me to tell you? He was a polygamous tortoise. So he says, what do you want me to tell your wives? He says, oh, tell them to bring out all the mattresses, then I'll jump from heaven and land softly so that I don't hurt myself.
Okay.
But this bird says, this person did something bad to me. So he goes down and tells the wife, there's an enemy chasing the tortoise. So bring out all the sharp objects. And he brings out all the sharp objects and they put them there. Then the tortoise looks down and sees all those activities and says, now I think they are ready, let me jump. He jumps. Then he hits those sharp things and he disintegrates. But fortunately there was a famous medicine man. So he comes and puts all the pieces together, glues them, and that's why the tortoise has those funny shapes on the back. So that so that's the story we were using in civic education.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was about empowerment and donation of your responsibility to someone else, and what does that mean? Like when you go and vote, it's like you're giving the politician your feather. Say, I've given you this, in exchange do this for me. I've given you this. So when we're doing that narration, people will go and say, I'm giving you this, and then they say their wishes. So then the issue is, what happens when they don't do? You go and pick your feather. I asked you to do this, I'm taking it away.
Right.
And it used to provoke a lot of discussion about what is constitution, how do we agree on things, what is representation, or what is misrepresentation. So that's how we play. And people are familiar with the story somehow. You didn't, like they already know it, and that's how the performances we do them. So I keep switching in terms of the genres, or even if I'm doing a play, I blend all those kinds of things within it. There'll be a poetry or a song inside the name, and that's basically how I experiment with it.
But it's interesting because, okay, so like 36.5 is a really different kind of performance than that kind of theatrical performance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if that, like, or are you like focused on sort of teaching? I'm just curious about like where that falls into the world, like, or maybe it doesn't because maybe it's too outside of what you're actually having to teach.
Is that 6.5?
Yeah, or just like I don't know, here at least there's such a boundary really between like experimental theater and some of this is commercialism, right? And then like visual art performance. And I think of my work as living more in the visual art world now. It used to be more in the theater world, and now it's like more in the visual art world because just how I'm framing it. And I'm interested from the like performance studies perspective in Kenya then, is that like and like here we just have, I don't know, there's so many, I think one of the problems in the fields are that everybody is so separated, you know, like actually experimental theater and visual art and like performance from a visual art perspective, they're actually very, very, very similar, but people, it's like how the artist chooses to frame it, that it lives in one world or in another world. Although, like, I know 36.5 doesn't have a narrative. Like, if you sit through a 12-hour, or you stand or you wander around during a 12-hour plus performance, there's no, like, narrative, but then there's lots of narrative that comes out of it. And like, I'm just interested in, like, where does that, so I'm thinking about, like, how does that live in this New York scene, and then also, and I know that that performance, like, I know it's relevant and I know it moves people, and I'm just like, sort of like curious how, but like I told you, it doesn't have, it's gotten some attention from an academic perspective and from sort of a national or a, other news perspective, but the art world is like not necessarily understanding it, and I'm just kind of curious where that lands in terms of the Kenyan performance world right now.
I think what has happened of recent is artists who have become activists, which has become they will think of something unique that they will do in order to bring out. So we see a lot of that. There was someone locking himself with a chain and standing.
But isn't art always activism? Doesn't art always have activism in it?
Yeah, but now, like where now someone has chosen that I'm going to dedicate my life to only the arts that serve certain purpose in terms of it. So they were not doing them in conventional spaces.
Okay.
So that's where I'm branding in that sense.
Yeah.
So like one of these is called Okoito Mtata. He is a playwright. So it's like this frustration that artists get where you think, I'm doing performances within theater spaces, but I don't seem to have this kind of impact I want. Can I change my way of doing it so that perhaps it's more impactful? So he will chain himself to a pillar and stand there for like a whole day. So that kind. We have this one who came and with pigs, real pigs, and put them in a truck and stood in front of Parliament.
Okay.
Because he's saying the MPs, the members of Parliament were now pigs. No, they were no longer human.
Okay.
So we've been having all kinds of that with artists who have converted and feel the frustration of saying, am I doing enough by performing in conventional spaces?
Yeah.
Perhaps the people who need to see what I'm doing do not come to those spaces anyway.
Yeah.
So there's been that push towards that end.
Yeah.
But then there's also that element of blending genres that has been happening.
Blending what?
Genres.
Jonas.
Yeah.
What is that?
Now I'm trying to figure out how Americans pronounce it.
Spell it.
Genre.
Genres.
Okay.
Oh. I have a shirt that was made by my friends who are underwater New York. It says genre fluid.
Yeah. So there's been a lot of emphasis on that of bringing different things. You bring new media, you bring and all that. So like there's a lot of experimenting and including the media.
Yeah.
So then what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
That's how why they're still embracing. So like what I was talking about yesterday. So someone asked me, so you stand in the water, so what?
Yeah.
How does that impact? Say, it is the frustration of an artist normally when people think that what you're doing is actually supposed to change the world, like you stand in the water and then the environment starts getting clean while you're standing there. So it's not supposed to be thought of it like that. That changing attitude is a bigger thing as opposed to imagining that when you step in the water will become clean. But if 2 or 3 people realize that whatever we are doing causes this and that spreads the ripple effect, now that we are talking about the ripple effect, starts slowly, but it expands until the awareness increases.
Yeah.
So that whole thing combined.
Yeah.
So there is a sense in which you can think of all these perspectives from different senses.
Yeah.
But I told you there were many tensions in your performance that I had never thought about until when I started watching it.
Yeah.
Whether connected with time or connected with other things. That
Wait, connected with what?
time.
Time, yeah.
And then I remembered about someone called Mbiti. He talked about African conceptualizing of time.
Uh-huh.
That time in African sense was tied to events. Like time is not an independent thing where a clock says
No, yeah.
it is 1, and then you decide no, that an event has to happen at 1 for you to tie to that. Oh, it is the time when it started raining.
See?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I wasn't meant to be born in this
yeah.
kind of time where we're like beholden to the clock.
So
Yeah.
that connection, that events are the ones that are more important, not the timing.
Yeah.
Not the timing.
I believe this. That's so interesting. I love this. Well, I don't know if I've told you about what I'm going to be doing in Maine at the residency that I'm going to next week. I'm going to be working on, and this is like a slow brew idea too that I've been thinking about for a long time, but just how do we, I've grown up in a culture where the clock is dominant and I'm constantly failing, as you know.
We are living in 10 minutes. We are living in 15 minutes. Okay, so.
And so how do we, I am convinced that, we shouldn't be, I'm really interested to read. Is it Miti?
Miti.
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 Biti. With an M? Spell it.
M-B-I.
N-B-I-T-I. Okay. But so I'm convinced that we as humans used to have a sensory awareness of the water that we have lost. I mean, this is the next conceptual thing I'm working on, but and I haven't quite figured out exactly what it's going to become, but I really think we have to get back to living in tidal, in relationship to the water. So the people in Bodo have this relationship naturally. They always know where their water level is, right?
By then they told us that we thought we had been there the previous day. We said, now when we went back and they were saying, no. Today it's not going up to there, it will just come up to here.
Yeah.
They
know.
They know.
I know, that's amazing.
But how, that's how they say
They
it.
know.
Yeah.
I know. See, I want to be like all the people in Bodo. And I feel like that's so interesting as this embodied knowledge that happens when you live in a place and when you live right by the water and you experience that shift and you're actually paying attention to it. And we, in New York, we live right by the water, but no one's paying attention to it because we're so cut off from the water.
Yeah, you feel someone else is taking care of it. So then
you're
I attend to my stuff. Someone else is dealing with it.
And I feel like, I love my city. I love how many millions of people are living here on top of each other, basically, and we somehow manage to function. But I think there's something so dangerous about the fact that we've grown away from, we are so disconnected from the systems that keep us alive,
Well, what we were mentioning the other day about, and I mentioned Brecht that time, Bertolt Brecht, the idea of observing your environment as if you are a stranger.
Yeah.
So you tend to live in the same place for a long time, and then you start taking everything for granted.
Yeah, it's so true. And that's maybe why travel, like we were talking about earlier, I don't believe in tourism, but I believe in cultural exchange and I believe in seeing new things because of maybe that way of seeing, of when you go to a new place.
So next time you come, I take you to the village.
Your village?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you just...
you better take me to your village.
And when you come, we will do that. You go to a drinking space. They do a different kind of drinking. There are bars
Yeah.
for different kind of drink. And then
Yeah.
there's traditional brew,
Yeah.
where they put a pot in the middle, and then you get some sort of pipe. So you sit around it and talk as you drink from a common pot.
Not
So
good during COVID.
so they add water. You keep adding hot water, and you sip, and then they add beer like that.
Well, I think that's also why when you go to a different place, it's so amazing because time slows down.
Yeah.
Like, you are here in New York right now, and these 3 weeks that you're here, they're gonna zip by in my life because I'm always here. I'll remember like, oh, when Kid Noguchi came, but I'm still in my home environment.
Yeah.
But for you, this will become this moment that you'll refer to in the same way that like you refer to your trip here in 2018. And so that's what's amazing, right? Is that when you put yourself in a new place, you're actually you're expanding time because you're seeing things with new eyes. And that is exactly what 36.5 is trying to do because it's actually about slowing down and paying attention, and then people see things and feel the water with new eyes.
Just standing is. Does it disturb you? Yes. Why is it just standing? That is exactly what you want. Just stand and reflect. Stop and think.
And there's so
no one
much to
wants
pay
to
attention
stop.
to.
They say we don't have time.
Yeah.
So no one wants to stop and think or say anything. Everyone is in a hurry.
Right, so I had to create a performance construct, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get people to slow down. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Wait. Okay, wait. I want to tell you though about this. Okay, what I'm doing at the residency.
okay.
You're gonna play air guitar.
Yes, I'm okay. I remember listening to it long time.
Okay. Okay, so this is what inspired it. I heard this podcast about how sharks have this incredible sense of direction, and we know this, that like all species have these incredible sensory things that we don't even know because we can't comprehend as humans all the different ways that they sense things. Octopuses, they are brilliant, you know? But sharks have an incredible sense of direction, and they could swim if they wanted to. They could swim like from New York City to the tip of South Africa in one straight line, like because of their understanding of gravitational pull, right? And that is just, to me, that like blows my mind, right? And then I was learning about this Polynesian seafarers who traveled on these boats and landed in Aotearoa, which many people call New Zealand, and they could navigate through the stars. They could navigate and find this in the middle of the enormous Pacific. The Pacific Ocean is so big. It takes like months to cross on a ship, and they could find this tiny little, these islands of Aotearoa, and they landed there, and that blew my mind because it's just incredible to think about humans actually understanding these things without technology, right? We think we're so dependent on technology to tell us these things now, and actually like we have the knowledge in our bodies if we look for it. And so that led me to think about the water and think about how, and so from like this kind of offshoot of 36.5, but this idea that, and like thinking about the people in Bodo, like who have this embodied knowledge of where the water level is, and could we, who, like someone like me who's a city person, is there some sort of sensory awareness in my body that's like a neglected adaptation that I've like, you know, like a tail that we don't use anymore? Or like, is there something that I imagine that people in the ancient past, or not even the ancient past, but a couple hundred years ago, a few hundred years ago, 500, 600 years ago, in this place, people indigenous to this place, if they live near the water, they would understand, you know, where that water level is at all times in order to survive, like barnacles, you know? And so I'm really interested in this idea. This is very conceptual, but I'm very interested in this idea that we can train our bodies like the people in Bodo. We actually could be aware of the water level at all times. And if we could be aware of the water level at all times, then we can prepare ourselves better for when all the water rises and when sea level rise happens, because it's just about awareness, you know? So anyway, I'm gonna try to tune my body and live in tidal time for 2 weeks. In Maine.
What would you exactly be doing?
I don't know.
Oh, you're
I'll
going to
figure it
figure out.
Do you have any ideas? I just have a concept. Can you? You want to help?
I'm going to wait. Wait and observe.
I know. Well, I think what I have to do is actually I'm gonna be, and this is gonna be hard, but I feel like I have to do it while I'm away from Edgar, at this residency. I'm gonna be right on the coast in Maine, at the Wells Estuary. And I think I just have to, I'm a weird sleeper anyway, so I think I have to just try to get my body in tune with the water and structure my day not around the normal clock hours. But so it's gonna probably be a little bit of jet lag, right? But and I don't know, I'm not sure, should I make high tide or low tide at the beginning of my day? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, I'm trying to figure out. Why this particular area? Is it
because I was invited to go there.
Okay.
Someone invited me to go. And
No, I actually thought
I'm
you were going to
great.
observe sharks and try and understand their behavior, but it's not that.
No, it's not.
No, you just want to reconnect with
No,
their original being.
Yes, with my with my ancestors.
Assuming
My
you have
ancestors
to,
probably
assuming
really
you have to
understood the
shed
water.
off all the New Yorkism in you.
Yes.
And then
How do I do that?
that's what I'm trying to figure out. But now that you say that, isn't that rather weird? Look, you perform by standing in water.
Yeah.
Directors normally like being outside so that they
Yeah.
watch.
I'm
the
still
direct-
outside in my brain.
Yeah, but
I'm
now,
outside.
since you have to remain there and look in front,
Yeah.
your focus is on looking at the water.
Yeah.
So is there any kind of frustration that you are used to directing,
Yeah.
and you can't tell, are the people I left behind doing what I asked them to do?
Totally. I'm so.
Because I can imagine of thinking, perhaps Kim Gija has forgotten to tell them that I will need.
I know everything you've forgotten. I know it. Yeah.
Because we do that in the theater, trust game.
Oh, totally. Because I have to, so it's an interesting experiment of being okay, I've set up this whole structure where I have to actually let go, and then other people have to do it. And I know that's, you heard this last night at the thing, I know that's actually the most beautiful thing. If I had been on the shore dealing with people, they would hate me.
Yeah.
But because I'm out there, they're loving me. So I'm okay, I have to, maybe that's what it is. I'm just creating this situation so I can be loved.
But it did ever happen you had people laughing behind, those 7 of them?
Yeah.
Or someone screaming and you wanted, do I look behind to find out what is happening?
Because because I'm very committed to there's a few moments where I've broken the moment, but no, I don't, I trust the people.
Well, I keep discovering something about this performance every time I listen to people.
That's what's so weird. It's this incredibly simple idea that is